Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Nandi. Welcome to the YouTube channel Ecstasy of Physics. In this video, we are going to talk about the review of the momentum, which is the fifth module under AP Physics 1 Algebra based course. Let's get started with the momentum. So this momentum is the fifth module of our AP Physics 1 course. To define the momentum, we can say the momentum is the product of mass and velocity. Let's say one object, if it is in moving conditions with velocity v and the mass of the object it is m. Now to define the momentum, we can say it's the product of mass and velocity that can be represented by m times v. So the total momentum of motions present in a body, it will be considered as the mass and the velocity of the object. It might be possible that it will be having the different velocities at different time. So in that case, it will be changing its momentum. Momentum generally it is denoted by the notation P. So P equal to its m into v. Let's consider a quick example of momentum. Here in a soccer game, a player is running with a football. So here we can consider the both of the objects are having the same velocity, but since the masses are different, so that they will be having the different momentum, because momentum it consists of the mass times velocity. Momentum it's a vector quantity, which means it will be having the magnitude as well as the direction. By magnitude, it will be, we have got this magnitude of the momentum, that is mass times velocity m into v, and the directions of the momentum, it is same as the directions of velocity. Same as direction of velocity. The directions of momentum it is same as the directions of velocity, which means in which direction the object is moving with particular velocity, that is the same directions of the momentum. Next is SI unit of momentum. The unit of mass, that will be kg, and the unit of velocity is meter per second. From there we can say the unit of momentum is kg into meter per second. Next is the relationship with the energy, kinetic energy. Relationship of momentum with kinetic energy. The relationship of momentum with kinetic energy. The expressions of kinetic energy Ek, that is equal to half m v square. From there we can say half m v square. I am multiplying m and m in numerator and denominator to make an adjustment. So from there I can write it's m square v square in the numerator part and m in the denominator part. Now mv we can keep inside the bracket, so mv square upon m. This mv it represents the momentum, which means instead of mv I can substitute p. So it's p square upon m 2m, that gives the kinetic energy. Or you can just write it down, momentum equal to square root of 2 into mass of the object times by kinetic energy. This is the relationship in between momentum and kinetic energy. Next we are going to talk about the classifications of the momentum. The momentum it can be classified into two ways. First is the linear momentum, and the second one we can say the angular momentum. The linear momentum is the thing what we have discussed now, P equal to m into v. The vectorial form of representations of momentum, that is P equal to m into v. This is the vectorial form where P is the linear momentum, which is representing a vector quantity, mass, the mass of the object which is a scalar quantity, and velocity it's a vector quantity. And the angular momentum, angular momentum, it can be represented by the analogous term of mass in rotational coordinate system or rotational kinematics, that is the moment of inertia, and times omega, that will be equal to L. L is representing the angular momentum, so L equal to I omega. That's representing the angular momentum. The unit of angular momentum, that will be, it's basically the unit of moment of inertia is kg meter square, and unit of angular velocity, that would be rad per second. Yeah, this omega stands for angular velocity, I stands for moment of inertia, moment of inertia, which can be represented as mass of the object times by the distance square from which axis it is rotating. So the axis of means distance from the axis of rotation. So that's representing the angular momentum. However, we are going to discuss in details regarding this angular momentum in our rotational mechanics part. Let's consider a quick example of linear and angular momentum. So here in this picture we can see that the person is trying to make a jump, but it's got turned at the end. So up to the fence, when he is having the linear motions or translatory motions, is considered as the linear momentum, but at the end, due to means with respect to this fence, he got turned, so that will be converted into the angular momentum. Next we'll be talking about the impulse. The impulse, it can be defined by, it's the product of the impulsive force and the time for which it acts on any object. That's representing the impulse. Let's consider one object whose mass is m. Now on this object, initially it's moving with initial velocity, let's say u. U stands for its initial velocity. On this object we are applying some amount of impulsive force F for some instant of time. Then due to the force applied, the object suddenly its velocity is got changed, and its velocity it is represented by v due to the force applied, and the time of force applied that we are considering, that is equal to t. So now the thing is, the impulse, it can be defined as is the product of impulsive force times by time. That's representing the impulse. The impulse, and that would be also can be represented by its change in momentum. The impulse, which basically represented by force into time, and that will be equal to same as change in momentum. Now the thing is, where from we are obtaining this relation, that force times time, and that is equivalent to change in momentum. To get this equation, we have to go back to the Newton's second law of motion. From Newton's second law of motion, we can say that force equal to mass time acceleration, m dot a, where this acceleration it represented by is change in velocity per unit of time. Delta v stands for change in velocity, t stands for time. Now change in velocity means it's basically representing the difference in between the final and the initial velocity. So it's v stands for the final velocity, u stands for the initial velocity. And from there we can write, if we multiply t in both sides, then we'll be getting force times time, that is equal to m into v minus u. Now if we remove the bracket, we'll be getting that mass times final velocity minus mass times initial velocity, and that is representing that mass times final velocity, that's the final momentum. So we can represent that is pf, and mass times initial velocity, that's the initial momentum, that is represented by pi, and that is equal to f into t, and which is same as the change in momentum. So which is same as the change in momentum, that is equal to the impulse. So by this way we can get these informations, that impulse equal to same as change in momentum. So we have got the impulse idea from this Newton's second laws of motion, and that is the derivations behind that, where from we will get this information. Few more informations regarding that impulse, which is a vector quantity, which means besides magnitude it will be having the direction as well. Is magnitude as well as the direction, both it is having. So directions, I mean magnitude we have defined here, that's basically representing that magnitude, that force into time. But what would be the directions? The directions of the impulse, it will be same as the directions of the applied force. The directions of impulse is being considered as the directions of the applied force. Next is SI unit of the impulse. SI unit of the impulse is force unit, that is Newton, time, that is second. So it's Newton per second, or it can be represented by change in momentum, that is equivalent to the momentum unit, and the momentum unit is mass times velocity. Velocity mass unit, that is kg, and the unit of velocity, that is meter per second. So from there we can say it's Newton into second or kg meter per second. Those are also the unit of momentum. Those are also the unit of impulse. Let's consider one example of impulse. So in the first case, one ball is getting struck with a pillow. So here the collisions time in between the ball and the pillow, it will be more, and since the collisions time it will be more, the force applied on the ball, that will be less, because impulse is consist of, I mean, force times time. Since the time it will be high, so the force exerted, that will be less. Now consider the second case. In the second case, one bat is striking a ball. So here the collisions time in between the bat and the ball, that will be less. So from there we can say the force exerted on the ball, that will be high. Let's talk about the conservation of linear momentum. According to the conservation of linear momentum, we can say that total momentum of any system, it is always conserved unless and until we will be providing any external force on the system. So you can say that total momentum is always conserved in the absence of external force on the system. Let's consider two objects. Those are moving along the same directions. This is the first object and this one is the second object. The first object is having the velocity u1. The second object is having the velocity u2. And initially we are considering that u1 velocity, it is greater than the velocity of u2, and their directions of motions, it is on the same line. The mass of the first object we are considering, that is m1, then the mass of the second object we are considering, that is m2. Since they are moving along the same line, and as velocity of the first object or the behind object, it is greater than the velocity of the second object, so in that case there will be a collisions in between the first and the second object. And after the collision, let's say the first object will be having the velocity v1 and the second object will be having the velocity v2 and the mass is m2. So now the momentum of the first object before the collision, that we can represent as is m1 e1. Momentum of the second object before the collision, that is m2 u2. Momentum of the first object after the collision, that is m1 v1. Momentum of the second object after the collision, that is m2 v2. From there you can say the before collision, the total momentum, it is represented by m1 e1 plus m2 u2, and total momentum after the collision, that is m1 v1 plus m2 v2. So here we are considering that total momentum before the collisions, that is equal to the total momentum after the collisions according to the conservation of linear momentum, and that's what is representing that momentum is conserved. And this is the important point, that no external force is exerted on the system. Whatever will be the collisions and due to which the force exertions in between the 1 and 2, that will be on each other, means the force exerted on the first object by the second object and force exerted by the second object on the first object, that will be same according to Newton's third law of motion, but due to which there will be no external force exerted on the systems, or the systems is not going to exert any force to the outer of the system. if we rearrange these equations of this conservation of momentum, that m1 plus m2 equal to m1v1 plus m2v2, if these equations if we rearrange, then you will be getting that if we subtract m2u2 from both sides, then you will be getting and negative m2u2 in the right hand side, and again in the second line if we again subtract m1v1 from both sides, you will be getting m1u1 minus m1v1 equal to m2v2 minus m2u2. Now from here this one we can take the negative sign as common, and we can just write it down, m1v1 minus m1u1, that is equal to m2v2 minus m2u2. And from there we can just consider the collision time in between the first and the second object. Let's say t. Collision's time in between the first and the second object we are considering as t. If we divide it by t in both sides, you will be getting m1, we can take as a common, v1 minus u1 upon t, and similarly m2 v2 minus u2 upon t. And this expression is representing that change in velocity per unit of time. That's basically representing that the acceleration. So it's m1 into a1, that is equal to it's m2 into v2 minus u2, that's the change in velocity of the second object with respect to the time, that is a2. So from there we can say that m1 a1, it's representing the force exerted on the first object due to the second object. So it's f12, and m2 a2 is representing the force exerted on the second object by the first object. So this is the expressions we are getting, that where that force exerted on each other, that will be same in magnitude, but the directions it will be opposite. So we can conclude from here the magnitude of the interactive force on each other, that will be same but opposite in direction. Collisions between two or more particles is the interactions for a short interval of time in which they apply relatively strong forces on each other. In case of collisions, we can classify into two ways. There would be two types of collisions we have: elastic collision and inelastic collision. Elastic and inelastic. Again, the inelastic collision, it can be classified into two ways: perfectly inelastic collision, perfectly inelastic collisions, and partly inelastic collision or partially inelastic collision. To define the elastic collisions, we can consider the momentum and the kinetic energy, these are conserved in case of the elastic collisions. And under these elastic collisions, the forces what we are going to consider, that all the forces it will be the conservative forces. Under the elastic collisions, all the involved forces are considered as the conservative forces. But in case of inelastic collisions, the collisions in which that momentum remains conserved but the kinetic energy does not remain conserved, that will be considering as the inelastic collisions. This inelastic collisions, in case of perfectly inelastic collision, two objects move together after the collision, but in case of partly or partially inelastic collision, the two objects are moving separately after the collision. In case of partly or partially inelastic collision, two objects move separately after the collision. So these are the basic difference in between perfectly and partially inelastic collision. In case of inelastic collisions, all the forces are involved, those are not necessarily be conservative forces. That means in case of inelastic collisions, that non-conservative force is also involved. In case of inelastic collision, non-conservative forces are also involved. Non-conservative forces, for example, the frictional force or the air resistance or the viscous force, those are considered as the non-conservative force. So due to these forces, there will be a certain amount of loss in kinetic energy, and that's the main reason why this in case of inelastic collision, the kinetic energy is not conserved. However, in case of elastic collisions, we are considering that kinetic energies are conserved because of the all forces are involved here. We are considering those are the conservative forces. But however, this in case of inelastic collisions, we are saying that kinetic energy is not conserved, but the overall the total energy of the system remains same. That means the total energy is always conserved in all the cases. This is a important point to understand, that we are saying that kinetic energy is not conserved in case of inelastic collisions, but the thing is that total energy of the system remains same. That means the total energy, it will be always conserved. Let's consider the examples of collision. So here in the first case, the two balls are approaching towards each other, they are colliding with each other, and they are moving away from after the collisions. So here in these collisions, if the momentum and the kinetic energies are conserved, then we can say this will be the perfectly elastic collisions. But in that case, if they are moving, means kinetic energies are not conserved, then we'll be saying it is the partially inelastic collision. Now let's talk about the second case. In the second case, here one small fish is approaching towards the large fish, and the large fish initially it is in rest conditions, and the large fish swallows the small fish. So after that they are moving in the same direction. That means that after the collisions they are moving along with the same velocity. So here in this type of collisions we'll be considering as a perfectly inelastic collision. Now we are going to consider the case of one-dimensional or head-on collisions. If the initial and the final velocities of colliding bodies lie along the same line, then the collision is considered as the one-dimensional collision. So now to define this one-dimensional or head-on collisions, we can consider that if the initial and the final velocities of the colliding bodies. So for example, that's the first object whose velocity is u1, second object whose velocity is u2, and the mass of the first object is m1, mass of the second object is m2. Both the objects are moving along the same direction, so that means their line of motions, it will be same, and after the collisions also they will be moving along the same directions with the velocities v1 and the velocity v2 respectively for the two objects. So in that case we can define that their line of motions after the before and after the collisions, it is along the same line. So that's why this is considered as a one-dimensional or head-on collision. Now in case of one-dimensional or head-on collision, first we can apply the conservation of momentum, which is valid for any type of collision. Conservation of momentum. According to conservation of momentum, we can say that m1 u1 plus m2 u2, that's the total momentum before the collision, m1 v1 plus m2 v2, whether this is representing the total momentum after the collision. And specifically if it is the elastic collision, then we can apply the conservation of kinetic energy. Conservation of kinetic energy. So according to conservation of kinetic energy, total kinetic energy before the collision. So total kinetic energy before the collision, that is equal to the total kinetic energy after the collisions, and that's basically defining the conservation of kinetic energy. So here we can define that, and basically specifically we can say this conservation of kinetic energy, it will be only valid for elastic collision, not for the inelastic collision, but the previous one it is applicable for elastic, inelastic, for both the for any type of collision. Now the equations we can consider before collisions, the total kinetic energy of the system is half m1 u1 squared plus half m2 u2 squared, that is equal to, after the collision, the total kinetic energy, that is half m1 v1 squared plus half m2 v2 square. That's representing the total energy before collisions and total energy after the collision, that is the total means representing the kinetic energy conservations in case of elastic collision. So now we are going to define the energy loss in case of perfectly inelastic collision. In case of perfectly inelastic collisions, we know that after the collisions two objects will move together. So let's say the first before the collision, the velocities of the objects are u1 and u2. They are moving along the same directions, and the masses of the objects are m1 and m2. Now the collisions we are considering is the perfectly inelastic, which means that after the collision that both the objects will be moving together. And let's consider the total means combined velocity of the two objects are v. So v is the combined velocity after the collision, and they are moving with the same velocity v. So what is the total kinetic energy before collision and total kinetic energy after the collisions we can determine, and then take the difference, and that difference will be representing that how much is the loss, energy loss in case of perfectly inelastic collision. Total kinetic energy before the collision, that can be represented by half m1 u1 square plus half m2 u2 square, and the total kinetic energy after the collision, that can be represented by half m1 plus m2, that's the combined mass of the system, times by the velocity square. Now if we can take the difference, that will be representing that what is the amount of energy loss, kinetic energy loss in the system, kinetic energy loss. Now the thing is that how this kinetic energy is getting lost. We know that total energy, it will be always conserved. There cannot be energy loss in case of total energy. That means that whatever will be the total kinetic energy loss, that will be going to convert into the some other form of energy, and that some other form of energy we can consider in terms of heat energy or thermal energy, or we can consider the sound energy. So by this way it can be justified that amount of energy which is reduced in case of collisions the kinetic energy, it is reduced in case of collision, that is going to be converted into the other form of energy in terms of heat or sound. Next we are going to consider, or we are going to talk about the two-dimensional collisions or the oblique collisions. To define the two-dimensional or oblique collisions, now to define the two-dimensional collisions or oblique collisions, we can say if the initial and the final bodies of the colliding bodies do not lie along the same line. So here you can consider, let's say one object whose mass is m1, and it is moving along these directions with certain velocity e1, and another object of mass m2 which is moving along these directions with velocity u2, and the velocity we can define by their angle, that is equal to, let's say this angle is alpha 1, and the second object is moving which is making an angle alpha 2 with respect to the horizontal. Then they will be going to collide at this point, and after that the first object is moving along this direction with velocity v1, and the second object is moving along these directions m2 with velocity v2, and the angle which is formed with respect to the horizontal, that is beta 1, and this is beta 2. So this is a kind of a two-dimensional collisions, and you can consider any example of two-dimensional collisions. For example, the billiard game, in which that one ball is going to be strike with the other, and after the collision the two balls are moving in the different directions. So that's representing an example of the two-dimensional collisions. Now two-dimensional collisions also, here we can apply the conservation of momentum. In case of two-dimensional collisions we can apply the conservation of momentum, but since it's a two dimensions, we can apply the momentum separately along the horizontal directions and along the vertical directions. We can define our coordinate system here. This is representing the x and the y axis, and x axis is considered as the horizontal directions, y axis is considered as the vertical direction. So we can apply the conservation of momentum along both the directions separately. So first we are going to apply the conservation of momentum along the horizontal direction. To apply the conservation of momentum along the horizontal directions or x directions, we have to first define that all the velocity components and all. So first let's say for u1, this angle here it is given alpha 1, that means this angle will be formed as alpha 1 here. Similarly u2 is moving along these directions. As per the, if we are going to consider some parallel line with respect to the horizontal, then this angle will also be alpha 2 due to the alternate angle concept. In that case, this u1 it can be resolved into two component. The horizontal component that will be making alpha 1 angle with the resultant, which means the horizontal component it becomes u1 cos alpha 1, and the vertical component which is downward, that is making the component that is u1 sin alpha 1. Similarly u2, with respect to the horizontal, it is making an angle alpha 2. So this u2, it can be resolved into two component. Horizontal component, that is u2 cosine alpha 2, and the vertical component is u2 sine alpha 2. Now similarly, this v1, it can be also resolved into two component. Here this angle is beta 1, and similarly this v2 also, it can be resolved into two component. So v1 components are the horizontal component or the x directional component, that is v1 cos beta 1, and the vertical component is v1 sine beta 1. In case of v2, which is making an angle beta 2 with the horizontal, that means the horizontal component of velocity, that becomes v2 cosine beta 2, and the vertical component, which is downward direction, that becomes v2 sine beta 2. Now along the horizontal directions or the x directions, if we can apply the conservation of momentum, the total momentum before the collisions along the horizontal direction, that is m1 into the horizontal velocity component that of the first object, that is u1 cosine alpha 1, plus mass of the second object times by the velocity component along the horizontal direction, that is u2 cos alpha 2. So first we will be applying the horizontal directional component times by the mass of the concerned object. Similarly, after the collision, the horizontal component of velocities are v1 cos beta 1 and v2 cos beta 2. So the total momentum after the collision, that is mass of the first object times by the velocity v1 cos beta 1 plus mass of the second object times by the velocity component v2 cos beta 2. Now similarly, we can apply the conservation of momentum along the vertical direction as well. Along the vertical directions or y directions, if we are going to apply the conservation of momentum, so here we can say the first let's figure out what are the components along the vertical direction. So it's v1 sine alpha 1, that is downward for the first object, u2 sine alpha 2, that is upward for the second object, then v1 sine beta 1, that is upward for the first object after the collision, and v2 sine beta 2, that's the downward of the velocity of the second object after the collision. Now let's gather all those components. For the first object, y directional component or the vertical directional component of velocity, that is u1 sine alpha 1 times by the mass, that is m1. But the thing is, since it is moving downward directions, component is moving approaching the downward directions, we'll be considering the negative sign here. We have to consider the directions as well, since the momentum, it's a vector quantity, plus the momentum of the second object before the collisions along the y directions, that is m2 u2 sine alpha 2, that is equal to m1 v1 sine beta 1, that is the momentum of the second object after the collisions. v1 sine beta 1, that is moving in the upward direction, so it is m1 v1 sine beta 1 plus m2 v2 sine beta 2, but again this v2 sine beta 2, the component of velocity moving downward, so we have to consider negative m2 v2 sine beta 2. So we have got these two expressions. This is the first equations and this is the second equations. So this is representing the conservation of momentum in case of two-dimensional collisions or the oblique collisions. If it is becoming a elastic collisions, then we can apply the conservation of kinetic energy as well. But since the kinetic energy, it's a constant, I mean it is a scalar quantity, so we don't have any directions. So whatever we have applied in case of kinetic energy equations in one-dimensional collision, the same equations we can apply in case of two-dimensional collision also. But if it is the inelastic collision, then we cannot apply the conservation of kinetic energy. So this is the overall view of the two-dimensional or oblique collision. Let's consider the example of the collisions, one-dimensional and two-dimensional collisions. So in the first case, the two objects are moving towards each other, and after collision they are moving away from each other, but their line of actions of the velocities, it will be on the same line. So that's why this is considered as a one-dimensional collision. Now let's talk about the two-dimensional collision. So here two cars are moving from towards each other, but they are coming from perpendicular to each other, and after colliding they will be moving to some different directions. So their line of actions of the velocities, they are different. So this one, second case, it can be considered as a two-dimensional collisions, and as well as since they are moving with the same velocity, so it can be considered as a perfectly inelastic collision. So second case is an example of the two-dimensional perfectly inelastic collision.